Okay, just want to make sure that fan was making noise, and it was, so I turned that off. Okay. First of all, I don't know much about this program. I just know that it's a drawing program that works on a Surface Pro connected to multiple screens. Right, GIMP doesn't work. My Paint doesn't work. I think Krita might work, but whatever. Well, I just wanted to talk about an idea for a story that I had. Watching a episode of Just Science, I was talking about immortality, right? And how you don't want it, basically, and all the kind of stuff that might happen if you have immortality and all that kind of stuff. And well, within the world of, man, I still don't know how exactly to refer it. I'm just gonna call it Destiny Saga. Right, the world of Destiny Saga. One of the species, the Morts, ironically named, are the longest living. Well, okay, one of the longest living species of the world, right? Right now, I think they should have a natural lifespan of 500 years, more or less. Though before I mention the story idea that I have, I had to mention a bit more about I guess their culture, their way of life, way of thinking, so on and so forth. Essentially, like I said, they are the one of the longest living of the okay, only the Nawa, Drevi, and Aetha are longer living. But because of the special status of those three, the next longest living are the Morts, the longest living of all the others species. So, like, I guess early in their history, they would question, why is everyone dying except for us, right? And they saw creatures live, grow old, die. The next generation, the same thing, right? Born, they grow, they procreate, and then they die. Same thing with all the other races, and yet they didn't, right? I mean, they could just give it enough time, but everybody else was quite short compared to theirs, right? They had to spend like 500 years for their natural lives. So the answer they came up with was they falling out of favor, out of death favor. So essentially they personify both life and death, and everybody else gets to experience life, and then they experience death, and then they experience life, and they experience death, and so on and so forth. So kind of like a reincarnation cycle, but death is another state of being. Okay, like again, kind of like in the reincarnation cycle, You die and then you get reincarnated. But that reincarnation, uh, again, on the previous existence, you will be in life's favor, and then the next one you'll be in death's favor, and then the next one on life's death, life, whatever. So I mean, the definition of death wasn't necessarily um, cease to exist, but change your existence, right? Um, Man, okay, now that I think about it, it's a bit complicated to explain, but okay, it's sufficient to say since they are not dying, they're not going to the next existence, right? To the death existence, I guess. And no, they think that the existence of death happens somewhere else, not necessarily in the same world they are at. By the way, all this is okay. The Morts are kind of a commentary on religion. They are deities in this world, but neither life or death are actual deities. So this entire thing is false. This entire construct is false. But anyway, so they think they should earn death's favor in order for them to be able to die. It is up to the individual to decide when they have earned death's favor, and then they would commit suicide, essentially. Kind of like in on the film Little Big Man. Like the grandfather character decided that this is my day to die, but then he didn't. Okay, I guess this is not my day to die. So for Mort, it will be okay. I have lived a good life. I should have earned death's favor. So here goes nothing, basically. So the majority. So okay. So with that back information, basically the vast majority of Morts do not live their natural lives. They may even just a fifth of their natural lifespan, right? So maybe like at 100 years is like an average amount of time in which a Mort will decide they have lived a life in which death would favor and commit suicide. But like I said, the natural lifespan is around 500 years. Which again, with that, where's the zoom? How do I zoom here? There. Anyway, with that, with immortality, you would live a long life, experience others' lifetimes, right? You will, while you stay, you're always consistent. You're always there. Everyone else will grow, get old and die, be born, grow old, and die, so on and so forth. So I was thinking the idea is how would the life of one of these morts that decides not to commit suicide and live their natural life will end up being, kind of, how would they spend the 500 years? Mainly as in relates to family, being that this Mort would have more than one family. maybe around 5 or 6, right, throughout this individual's lifetime. Man, I need to get better at drawing. However, this jiggling, like wiggle, is probably from the surface. Anyway. Okay, like I was saying. So, okay, this is an interesting idea for a story of a individual who has a long. Everybody else's lifespan is about average to a normal human, save for one, which has, a couple have shorter lifespans than a human, but basically the majority do have a lifespan around the same. Um, around the same as a human, right? So this long-lived individual will pass through life, and in essence, will start different families, right? When one family expires, the individual will start another family, and then that family will expire and start another one, so on and so forth. So now that I have that individual who, like, one of the main thing is the gender of this individual. Being that kind of like how the family dynamics will be different depending if it's male or female. I think I already have settled on doing it female. Being that introduces pregnancy, right? In order for this individual to start a family, they will have to go through pregnancy. On the flip side, one thing that having this individual be male would have enabled would be family abandonment. I mean, simply that it's easier for a male to abandon a family than for a female. For a female, will have to at the very least wait till the child is born, while the male can go buy cigarettes at any time, basically. Man, this is like a bit dark, right? Anyway, okay, so how would this individual, like I said, it would be female. I already decided that. So how would the families be? How would this, like, what would make this story interesting, kind of, sort of, and like, oh well, I mean, like, how would the progressions of it be? And first, with the first family, the first partner, right? It will be normal, right? It would. Man, I forgot if they have button nose or pointed nose. Let me check some reference really quick. By that I mean like wide nose or narrow nose, the Morts, or does it even matter? Yeah, they're all white nosed, so I'm gonna meet. Is the fan hearable? Let's see. Is the fan hearable? Let's see. Is the fan hearable? Let's see. Is the fan okay? But yeah, it does seem like the fan is hearable. Anyway, and like I said, it's a Mort, so they basically one of the things that dominates their daily behavior is trying to achieve that acceptance from death. So they live their lives as good as they can, so that they can die and pass on to the next existence in death's favor. Otherwise, if they don't do anything good, they will keep on living and not experience death like everyone else does. Okay. Anyway, so okay, yeah, they basically that is one of the, like I said, one of the things that dominates their lives, their daily lives, is trying to strive to be a good individual to gain death's favor. So, disregarding any details, right? She will find someone, she will marry, have family, have children, and then at one point after that, both her and her husband will decide they have lived a good life. It is now time to find if they are in that's favor. So they will together commit suicide. However, at this point, she backs out. So he is left to. Well, he basically, it would have been a mutual death, kind of. They both would have died together, but since she backs out, uh, now he essentially dies alone, and kind of sort of this existential crisis happened, being that uh, for her not going through it, does that mean that he didn't live a good life? That he didn't gain death's favor since she decided not to die. Being that, like I said, mainly the main reason they both decided that they have earned death's favor is because they have raised a good family. But since yeah, it's complicated to explain. Since she didn't die, does that mean that she thinks she didn't have a good family? And in turn, so that means that he didn't raise a good family, and so on and so forth. So now, like, the family, the children now think that, like, Um, then now that the father died in vain, that he has ceased to exist rather than pass to the next existence, like pass to the existence of death. Okay, whatever. Uh, so okay, essentially, they are shunned by. She is shunned by her children, and she's like, maybe I should have. Again, remember that this is in their in this culture, it is a good thing to commit suicide. Like maybe she should have, maybe even like so like basically this is existential crisis, right? That she should have uh, died with him instead of keep on living, so on and so forth. However, so she continues not to commit suicide, and eventually, her children died. Right, and the same thing. They have achieved success in life essentially. So now they're gonna see if they have won death favor. And so here's where the story kind of begins, sort of. Kind of. Being that there's this other thing that I thought, being that at this point, after her husband dies and after her children die, and her grandchildren, because her children don't want to do anything about her grandchildren don't know anything of her, right? So now she has no family. So basically 2 lifetimes, right? Later, right after her husband and her children pass away, kill themselves, and then after some while, she starts a new family. Now, the nature of this second family, I'm still deciding what exactly to do with it. Being, is this actually where the second family starts, or would the third family start? I was thinking one thing about the third family is that the second family could be an abandoned family. That right, her children are still alive, and she's having this existential crisis, and then she like starts a family, but then leaves, right? Because she thinks it's wrong, right? To even start a second family, right? Being that, remember, the children are no longer talking to her, so she, while her children are still alive, she's basically alone. So I guess she wants to start a second family, but she feels like it's wrong, so she abandons the family. And at this point, because this is the only part in which will actually make a difference if it's a male or female, because the nature of how the family gets abandoned. Being like I said, the male has an easier time to abandoning families, right? As soon as the mother says that she's pregnant at any time before that and birth, the father can just leave. Well, for the female to leave before birth, the birth has to end. Has miscarriage. There we go. A lighter term for it, miscarriage. Um, the I mean, she could leave after the child is born. And if the child is miscarriage, then means that that child, that character can no longer be part of the story. Well, if they get abandoned, they can pop up later, right? Uh, anyway, so I kind of want to put an aspect of an abandoned family, and the second family seems to be a good place to put it. But then there's another elements, kind of, being that the world has more races than just the Mort. So at one point, she would start a family with um, someone else, with someone who's not a Mort. I mean that the Morts. One of the main things about the Mort is they have the very long lifespan, and that they commit suicide. Uh, with everyone else, it will be regular, right? Just a regular lifespan, right? And that's when the more interesting parts will happen. So the second family, especially if it's the abandoned family, if the second family ends up being the abandoned family, it will need to be a Mort family, a Mort partner, a more children. Um, but if that ends up happening, then the children will also be long lived, up to the point where they um, uh, commit suicide, right? However, if the abandoned family uh, is another species, then at the point when they meet again, uh, it could be like just the last surviving child, or it can be still the entire family, but they will be older. One thing, the Mort's aging will not change too much. So she will still be the same while the children will be older. If they're Mort, that will not happen. But if they are from another species, that would happen, right? You can see maybe like the last surviving child, already elderly, seeing her mother, and her mother still basically still looks useful. Um, and remember that there will be a child that was abandoned, so if she ever knew her mother, it would have been for a very short time. It would not even be in her memory. So yeah, there's a couple questions to answer if it ends up depending on the direction. But then after there has to be either the second or the third one must that she will start a family with someone of another species, another race, basically. I don't know. I don't like that hair. One thing, they have very straight hair, so I'm trying to figure out how to make the hair for the character. Anyway, so okay, like a small timeline, she would probably, let's say at around 15 to 20 years, is when she meets the husband, right? And let's say at around 22 to they have children, right? And it is at around around 50 years of age. Should I make it 50 years? That'd be quite short for, like I said, an average would be around 100. 50. And let's make it 80. So around 80, the husband passes away. So at this point, the children are at the very 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So at this point, the children are 50. So at around 120 is that the children die. So okay, so this is what so far what I've established so far. Like I said, where is the second husband? Well, first, where will the abandoned family end up being in this timeline? And which husband will be the first non-mort? After the first non-mort, the rest of the families will also be not morts, which you have. Huh. Okay, how about this? So after 120, her children pass. So let's say at 140, she gets a new husband. And kind of like immediately, right? I mean, she no longer is young, so like at 145, they have children. And clearly, the husband would not be 140. The husband will be around 50, 20. Right? So over here, it's 20 years old. So let's say he passes away at should it be again 80? Twenty, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So in 5 decades. So at 190, however, okay, isn't this one in which she decides I okay, I guess she will cheat, right? 140, 50, so 20, 30, 40, 50. So 4, 5, 6, 7. So around so around 170. I'll be the third. But see, the second husband is still, um, still alive, but she knows that he's gonna pass away. He's gonna commit suicide, and she's not. Um, so she already went through it once. Will she be able to go again? So before her husband commits suicide, she will get a third husband. But then she abandons the so this is the one that gets abandoned. And by this time they already Oh, so at this point, they have already have third husband. Already has children with the third husband. But see that. So being that at this point the second family is still alive, and she's having a third family, so she will be pregnant with her third family's children, while the second family is still alive. So that would be an interesting story to tell. How has she managed to? I mean, constantly there are stories about like the second secret family, but that one only happens with male characters. It's easy for male characters to have a second secret family, but how would a female have a second secret family? But I mean, she only has it for like 2 years before she abandons it because she feels bad. I mean, she already feels bad of taking a second husband, but yeah, she will feel bad that they will pass away. So she's kind of preemptively getting a third husband, but then she feels bad that she has it preemptively a third family before the second family expires, I guess. So when did I say 40, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80? So at 140, 150, 160, 70, 80, 90. At 200 years old, and by the way, the third husband now is uh, not a mort. Okay, wait. I need to utilize the facilities, so I shall be back. Okay, I'll be back. Choo-choo. Okay, I'm back. Choo-choo. Choo-choo. Okay, I'm back. Choo-choo. Choo-choo. Okay. There's the pen. Okay, there's the pen. Let me delete that. Let me delete that layer. Okay. Okay, how does this work? Maybe that like that. Okay. Okay, so the second passes away. Right at 200 years old. By the way, Mort's aged very slowly, so at 200 he will still look young. Maybe will look around late 20s, early 30s. So maybe like a 205. Okay. Okay, so see the second husband passes away in a similar way how the first one would have. However, she will just leave. So she will technically abandon the third family, but essentially she's faking her suicide. So she will be faking her suicide at the same time her husband passes away. So their children wouldn't have a negative uh, idea of her, just unlike her first set of children. Right now, I haven't even talked how many children she's gonna have. She is going to have children with all the husbands, or maybe just one husband without children. That'll be interesting. But so far, yeah, she has have children with so far 3 husbands. So she will fake her death. She will fake her suicide and just leave. Right, and a couple of years later, she will start the next family. Okay, right now she is not planning to start families. They just happen right after. Uh, Basically, her family passes away and she's alone. Um, and she meets people, right, friends, whatever, and ends up falling for one and starts a family. But then they pass away again. Right, so on. So she's not planning to start families. They just happen. Anyway, and she leaves, and so basically should it be maybe like a couple years later? Yeah. However, in this case, they are just like the third family were no longer Morts. From then on, she will no longer have Mort family, and now it involves even more complicated rules because of um, hy- hybridization, basically hybrids, right? She will be a Mort mother to, let's say, a lore father, basically. So she will have. Wait a sec. Oh, choo choo. Oh, choo choo. Okay, just getting the cat out of the table. Anyway, let me continue drawing over here. And yeah, I realized that maybe I should have separated them by layer, put the words on a different layer, but whatever. Um, well, like I was saying, well, especially with the third family onwards, uh, she's going to have hybrid children, right? Like I said, she's a mort mother, and let's say a lore father, or an area father, or a gen father, or something like that, basically. And so now I kind of had to define a couple of rules. Especially one thing will the being that in real life the majority of basically hybrids are infertile. Should I make it like that? Right now, in regards to hybrids, not necessarily within part of this story, but it will play something important in the story. Well, in regard to hybrids, they basically inherit the mother's body plan and inherit a couple variations from the father, mainly like color, texture, things of that nature. But the body plan itself comes from the mother. So, meaning that many races have, like, for example, different numbers of fingers. Like the lower have 4 fingers, while the Mort have 5. So, if the mother is a Mort, the child will have 5 fingers. If the mother is a lower, the child will have 4 fingers. Uh, but generally, okay, I already kind of have that part answered. The main thing afterwards is, what if the hybrid children, I mean, in general, can hybrids start families? Can they reproduce? And I kind of do want them to reproduce, but then the question becomes, how will their children be? especially, let's say, okay, we have a Mort and a Lore, right? So they make a hybrid of a Mort Lore, and then let's say a a Duga. What will the child be? Will it be H Mort Lore Duga, right? Would it be that? Now let's say it could be, since this is the mother and it's a Mort Lore hybrid. Actually, let's make the first one the mother, and the second one the father. Right, so it will be a Mort Lore hybrid, being the mother being Mort. The body plan follows the Mort. So now it will depend if this is a father or a mother, right? If it ends up being the father, it will be a Mort Dugan hybrid, right? So whatever was inherited by the lower father will no longer be passed on. And if it's the mother, then it will be a Dugan Mort hybrid. Right, the first one is who the mother is, and the second one who the father is. So the next one, if the next one is a Dugan mother, then it will be a Dugan child, not Dugan, just pure Dugan. So whatever hybridization they had is now all gone. I'll probably go over hybrids at a further date, but yeah, something like that that's how they will work. I mean, right now from her third and fourth husband, she is going to have hybrid children. So knowing if the children themselves are going to have children later on and they will meet her, I mean, yeah, is that even a possibility of the story? But anyway, so back to and the husband at this point, he was let's say 30 years. I made him 30 years so he can die quicker. 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. At 80, yeah. So that basically 5 years later, 5 decades. So 2, 6, 5. And around 2 I'm gonna copy this to a separate file and erase it from here eventually, but I'm just gonna finish drawing her. uh, but apparently she's already like around just a bit past her halfway life expectancy, and she already is at her fourth family, so maybe it could be more than five. I was thinking five, but I think it could be more than five. uh, Back to her. But yeah, maybe sometime after the fourth family, or during the fourth family, or during the fifth family, is that she meets someone from the abandoned family. Um, like I say, it could be probably the elder, the youngest child still surviving. I mean, I said 2 years, so at most it's two children. Uh, and yeah, since there seems to be plenty of space in her lifespan, maybe can have one of the husbands not have children. And then basically from that point on, from this point on, basically from the fourth husband onwards, there wouldn't be too much um, drama. Right on her fourth. I mean, by her fourth one, she already has experience. Uh, well, basically, this kind in the abandoned one, she has already experienced three families passing away. So she has lived through three families. So I don't want to say like she's used to it, but like she's experienced in that she knows that she's gonna outlive her family. I need to learn how to draw hands, but that's not for today. Okay, now it's have to make an important decision. What would one of her husbands be? From what race? The main thing is because I want to, at least at this point of her dress, her boots, her will be of whatever culture her husband was. It'll be lower. I like their boots, kind of. Do something like that. This one should be higher. erase over here. So I mean, like I said, I heard what was it? Yeah, the YouTube video from Just Science and talking about immortality and like, well, at least it'll be interesting telling a story of a long-lived individual. And also, I know I had that idea for a while after I watched Green Mile. Right, the character of Tom Hanks has lived for a long while. Um, However, they only show that he has experienced the loss of one family. Now he's on his second family. Okay, let's see. What will I think this one will be the best. Do I have like some sort of brush edger? Okay, where is that one? I want to change the size of it. Okay, but whatever. If I can't change the size, what color was it anyway? I'm just gonna put flat colors. I'm not gonna shade or anything. I'm not good at shading anyway. Where is the Anyway, back to the story making thingy. Uh, maybe her pants comes from somewhere else. I mean, she already has a very short shirt. They tend to wear robes. So. Okay, one thing about the Morts is that they see in black and white. So, at the very least, the Mort part of her clothing is going to be black and white. Though, honestly, if the colors of their clothing were something other than black or white, they wouldn't be able to tell. Except for one color. Red. Yeah, it doesn't go over it. Interesting. Okay. The red color is the only color they can actually see besides black and white. So honestly, since lower, especially like lower skin, lower eye color, lower hair color is essentially various types of red, including oranges and violets. So she will be able to see lower. I had not realized that part, that they will actually be able to see lowers. Let's make this a deep black. Her skin color will be off white. And their iris color, I'm gonna leave it white. Okay, like I was saying, lower, they have basically a bunch of red hues in their body, so it will make sense that she will see a red lower. Interesting. I mean, everybody else is be black and white. Lords and Morts are already black and white. Areas are mostly on the pink purple side of things, so I don't think she will be able to see them in color. Emo have red hair and white skin. I mean, she has white skin, basically have white skin, with red hair. Though emos are extremely rare, kind of. I mean, they're not rare, kind of. They just not as expansive as other races. They live in a very small specific territory. So unless she goes and lives where the emo live, or unless an emo has traveled way outside basically where they live, then she wouldn't have a chance to meet an emo. Let's see what else. I mean, again, the frill are also very rare, and they will be definitely black and white since they are primarily blue. So will what's it called? A mahir. A discom, their hair color can land on the red side, and they may have some glimpses of red, like let's say on their nose. So maybe that could be another husband. Let's see, I already said the lords and the Arya. The Duga are mostly yellow, so nah, they would not be able to see them. I'm giving her lore pants. So definitely one of her husbands is lore. Okay, continuing down the list. The Laurel, they do dress with pinks and reds. Again, being that I'm saying this because, like I said, they only see black and white, except for the color red. So, if anything, red stands out for them. Everything else is black and white. So again, Laurels do wear red. They also wear many warm colors from, like I said, pinks and oranges and yellows. They themselves are green with yellow eyes and magenta irises. And then after that, them is the Mort. Of course, she's gonna have 2 Mort husbands. After the Mort are the Zeur. They're mostly brown to orange, and they have a completely different body plan. Their body plan is not human-like. The next one, the Minka. I mean, they may have red on them. That's not possible. They're like cats. Cat-like, not necessarily cats, but cat-like, and so their fur color could be red. Then after that are the Jinn. They have yellow skin and blue hair, and they wear grays. So yeah, she will see them as in black and white. However, the next one, the Mirai, they are dark red, so she may be. I think she would be able to see them in color. Then again, like I said, is the emo. but emo can only be found in certain territory, and unless she, like I said, she travels to that territory, or there's an emo wandering somewhere else, then she will not likely see an emo who have white skin like her and red hair. Maybe I should make it possible, right? It's not, like I said, it's not impossible. I just have to make an emo character that has traveled away from home. Then are the, what's it called, the curly. The curly definitely could have red. At the very least, in the as magenta. The thing, yeah, curly have something to do with the primary colors, both RGB and CMY. How those two sets of colors relate to their hair and their eyes. They have fur as well, but the fur can be various types of colors. But their hair and their eye color can be red, but it can also be any of the other 5 primary colors from RGB or CMYK, without K being black. Then the next two, I'm not sure, since they have completely different body plans. The wolves mainly are like dogs, actual, quadrupedal animal, like a dog, like a cat, like a weasel, something like that. And then the nynx, they're like fairies, so they're very small. Then the retin are very bat-like, and K-pop are like centaurs. Okay, kind of interesting. Kind of like how the bottom basically turns into lore clothing, while the top she retains Mort clothing. Let's name her. Okay, the thing about Mort names is that they have a first name, they have a last name. Both of the names are single syllable. So, well, another character, that already exists. It's Sophie. Though that one already exists, so I don't want to unnecessarily repeat names. So what would I name her? Since maybe her third husband could be a lore, so a name Man, okay, I haven't standardized female lore names. I've standardized male lore names, but not female lore names. Dina. There we go. Her name is Dina. And maybe she can pass as Dina. I know Dina is a lore name. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm done with this part. It will be an interesting story of her and her maybe 6-7 families as she lives a long lives of 500 years, right? Like her first, like I said, her first husband, they would have passed away together, but she decided not to, and became estranged to her children because of that, because she didn't. That maybe led to their dad to pass away before he needed to. I'll explore that later, but basically, then after her first children passed away, then she has a second Mort husband and has children with that husband. And still thinking that she may lose that family sometime in the future, she gets a third husband while her second husband is still alive. But a couple of years later, she abandons that family, right? Then when her second husband passes away, she fakes her death. So then her children also think she passed away alongside her husband, just how it would have been with her first husband. But now it happens on the second husband, so she leaves. And she finds a fourth husband. The fourth husband is not a Mort, so they would have a regular lifespan. They will actually, right now, the Morts age very slowly. So that's why essentially a 140-year-old was able to marry a 20-year-old, because physically they look the same, or very similar. Maybe she looks a little bit older than the husband, but still. So the fourth husband marries a fourth husband and has children, and this time around they actually age, right? So husband will grow old, grow senile, and pass away by natural causes, or unnatural, whatever, but not by their own hand, kind of. But I mean, yeah, they're not by their own hand. And so from the fourth husband, her children will also age, so they will also be elderly while she still looks youthful, right? At the ripe old age of 270, right? That will be, at that point, probably she may look around 30, right? When she's 300, she looks like 30. I don't know. But yeah, and then any subsequent husbands will basically be something similar. I mean, she will still have her. Maybe she will marry uh, while a future husband is still alive, but the future husband is elderly. So she will remarry, right? Or she will marry when her children are elderly, something so forth. And then, of course, she's gonna have all those grandchildren and great grandchildren, so on and so forth, until she actually passes from old age at the year of 500. Uh, so I don't know. It'd be an interesting story to tell uh, of Dina and her many families. Okay, let me save this. Can I save this? Yeah, I'll just save this. Yeah, I'll save it here. Okay, I just wanted to do that, record kind of that, so I know, kind of record this idea. So yeah, that is all.